Hello, everyone. Okay, okay, so we're probably going to have to do our introduction again because I made a little mistake. I never actually pressed start on the live stream for some reason.
Oh.
So, yeah. So they've all been in here talking, and I didn't realize. But that is totally my fault. That's what you get from, an LDJ Wright stream.
Wait,
Technical
that's actually funny
difficulties.
because I was wondering. I was like, that's odd.
Yeah, I was wondering too because I was like, no one was talking to us, but that's fine. Hello, everybody. I'm actually live now, a little later than I said I would be because we were just in here writing and talking without actually being live. But we're live now, and as you guys can see, I am here with Brielle Wright. And yeah, she introduced herself earlier, but obviously no one could see it. So I'm going to let her give her short introduction again real quick, and we'll jump into a couple of questions.
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Brielle. I have my own channel, Brielle Writes, and I am working on draft 2 of my new adult fantasy novel titled Unraveling. So I'm going to be editing that during this stream. And sorry, guys.
That's no, you don't even have to apologize. That's all me.
But thank you so much to LDJ for having me on the channel. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, thank you for being here. And yeah, I see you guys had a great conversation in here about critiquing and editing services. I know, Brielle, don't you have a critique service?
I do. Oh my God. Thanks for the plug. I do, in fact, have a critique service for basically it's like, I would say halfway between a beta read and a developmental edit. But yeah.
Do you actually have clients yet, or is it like in the?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting started with clients. I have some booked for the next few months. So it's exciting.
That's exciting. Yeah. What's it like? Oh, we have a question. Ooh. I think this is a great question for you, Brielle. Hold on, let me pin it. This is from Chelsea. This is my girlfriend, actually. But she asks, what's it like being in the intersection of creating content and writing?
That's a great question. I think it's such a fun and kind of symbiotic intersection. To me, it's so intertwined, and it's kind of nice because when my content is thriving, it feels like my writing is thriving, and vice versa. Like, it motivates me to write, that I'm creating content about it. When I'm writing a lot and feeling excited about my book, it makes me more excited to create content. So I think they actually fit together so well, and it's so cool to this is the most engaged community I've ever seen in an online space. So it's so nice to be tapped in to just such an engaged and excited community of passionate people.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I know. I definitely agree. This is definitely the most passionate and engaged community I've been a part of. You can see these people were in here talking for 30 minutes without us even being live. That's crazy. They were having full-on conversations with each other, and I've never really experienced that anywhere else. But in terms of the intersection between content creation and writing, I've had a YouTube channel in the past, but it was nothing writing related, and I never wrote any scripts, so that was pretty different. But since I've started now, it's not too different. In the videos, you kind of have to create a story, and you have to outline, and you have to plan stuff, so it's pretty similar in that regard. So yeah, that's how I would answer that.
And it's kind of nice because I feel like content creation and writing use different parts of your creativity. You know what I mean? Sometimes I want to be more like solitary and like not have my face and just like focus on like the book. And then other times I'm feeling more social and like I want to engage
Mm-hmm.
when I like do the content stuff. So I love that it like uses different parts of your creative energy.
Yeah. And we have a follow-up question. How did you find your niche in content creation?
Ooh, that's fun. Uh, well, also like LDJ, this is not like the first channel I've had. So I have like a more general, I guess, lifestyle channel that I started a couple years ago. And for me, going into the writing niche was so inspired by other writers that I was watching. Like, I was like, wait a second, this looks kind of fun. Like, um, the idea of getting to talk about a specific passion and really like get into the nitty gritty and the details of it was so interesting to me. And also be
Mm.
able to attract creative people because I feel like that's like who I want my peers to be. Um, so that's kind of how I came into this niche.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I'm a writer, so I feel like it's only natural. I'm in the author tube space, and yeah, I don't know, I'm not like a teacher, but I kind of like helping people get better at writing because I've had people, ask me, how do you do certain things in writing? So I think that's probably why I make a decent amount of like tutorial type videos and how to's. And I just like to share my process with other people and to see how other people work. So yeah, that's pretty much like how I got into this specific niche.
Love that.
And Nivea asks, "Are we starting over the sprints?" So yeah, we did sprint 1 off camera, and we'll be doing sprint 2 soon.
Yes.
We'll get through a couple more questions. Alyssa asks, "What are we working on this stream?" I'll let you go first, Brielle.
Sure. So I'm currently revising chapter 8 of my fantasy book. And it's actually interesting because in the first sprint we did that you guys didn't see, I was rereading this chapter and it honestly, writing can be so weird because when I started rereading it, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, it doesn't sound like a real book. Like, what was I thinking? And then, like, 10 minutes later, I was like, wait a second. this is kind of great. So I'm going through the thralls with chapter 8, but my word count is really starting to climb, which is exciting. I added quite a lot of new material in this chapter. So that's what I'll be working on it, probably polishing this and then hopefully getting to chapter 9 because I don't want to beat it to death by going over it too much.
Yeah.
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 My answer.
And I'm working on chapter 16 of Court of Rooks, and almost like, yeah, I kind of had the similar feeling while I was doing the first sprint that you guys didn't see. I was staring at my computer screen for like 5 minutes trying to figure out how to start the scene, and then as I was writing the beginning, I was like, this is not good. And then I got like 10 minutes later, I was like, you know what, I'm starting to cook a little bit. So yeah, writing definitely has its like ebbs and flows of like you feel really good, and then you feel like, what are you doing?
Yes. And it can literally be the same thing that you're reading too. Like I reread the same portion that I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, this doesn't even sound like a book. Like this is this even anything? And then when I reread it the second time, I was like, wait, I actually like it. I feel like it's such a mental game of like where you're coming to the manuscript emotionally, if that makes sense, whether or
Yeah.
not you're liking or not liking your work, you know? Yeah.
Mm. And I'll ask one more question since it doesn't seem like we're getting any more right now. And let's see, pull from my list. Ooh, here's a good one. I know you made a video about developing your characters and how people can do so, but what's the like specific process you do in case anyone hasn't seen that video?
Oh, sure. Well, the first thing I will say is that I think I discovered my characters a lot through the drafting process. Obviously, I knew some stuff going in, but a lot of it was discovered, like their wants and needs even was pretty much discovered. But the main things that I like to think about are like what what pieces of their personal history are really impacting them? How does that affect what they want or need and how they approach their relationships? What's like the big thing that they need to work on about themselves? Like, what's their big flaw? How can they overcome that during the arc of the book? And like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you have those things in mind, so much of the other pieces of your character falls into place because you have like that core. Um, So yeah, those are the things that I
Yeah.
think are the most important for developing characters.
Yeah. The want and the need thing is so interesting because I never really thought about it like that. Like, yeah, of course your characters need like a motivation, but I never really thought about the like the difference between the want and the need. So when I saw your video, actually, I like that really made me look at my characters differently and was like, I need to figure out what their want and their needs are. And it like
Yeah,
really helps to make them feel more fleshed out and just it makes it feel like they're not doing things for no reason. And you
right.
can understand why they're doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big breakthrough for me as well when I heard those words, like the terminology, because yeah, I mean, it makes sense. You know, a lot of us we aren't even aware why we're doing what we're doing, but as the author, you get to have that knowledge of like, okay, what do they actually need? Like, what's the subconscious stuff? So it just
Hmm.
makes it so much more fun to play with. Okay, the character doesn't even know that they think this or want this, but I do, and I can like,
Yeah.
puppet them
Manipulate
around
them.
based on
Yeah. Yeah. We'll do one more question. Ken has a great question. He says, how do you match voice and character, especially when it's a personality that you aren't and can't fully imagine?
that. This is a great
Yeah,
question.
it is a great question because I'm kind of struggling with that right now.
Yes, I struggled with this a little bit too because my main character is very unlike me, and I would catch myself slipping into my generic main character, aka kind of more like me, and
Hmm.
then have to be
Yeah.
like, wait, no, she doesn't think like that because basically my main character is very like at the beginning of the book she is very cold and depressed and doesn't have any reason to like live. Like she's very hopeless.
Hmm.
And I'm like such an optimist and I'm very anxious. So those are like total polar
Yeah.
opposites. Like for me, if my life was at risk, I would be freaking out, but she's really detached. So she
Yeah.
actually wouldn't be freaking out. So for me, it's just like having to remind myself constantly of like, no, her core thing is that she's in this like difficult emotional state. Like, how would someone who feels that way react to the scenario? Not how would I react? Or how would the stereotypical main character react? Because a lot of stereotypical main characters are like pretty anxious, like pretty melodramatic in their own head, like sort of
Yeah.
thing. So for me, it's just constantly like checking myself and making sure I'm writing from her circumstances.
Yeah. That's definitely a great way to approach that. And I think one thing I do is I try to find characters like the one I'm trying to make, and I like study them and their mannerisms and how they think and try to, import that into my character because the character I'm writing about now, he's like a 40-year-old grizzled detective, and I'm early 20s, not a detective. Have only watched Law and Order, so it's very it's a little difficult to get into his head because his head is very dark. He has a lot of dark thoughts, and he's a morally gray character, and I'm not. I'd say I'm more lawful good, and he's more on the, other side of the spectrum.
Right.
So I really have to like dive into his mind and try to get rid of how I would do something and like embody him when I'm writing as him.
Totally. And especially if it's in first person, that's like a whole other layer. Because then you have to get their inner monologue and like
Yeah,
their thoughts. I feel like
yeah,
also if you knew someone in your real life who is more similar to your character, that might be helpful
that
as well.
helps. Yeah,
How would this person react to this? If you happen to know
hmm,
someone. Um,
yeah. That's
yeah.
a great tip, actually. Thank you for that question, actually, Ken.
Yeah, it's
That
great.
was a great question. Okay, we'll be going into a list.
I was laughing. I was like, that's so quotable. The way that he said that.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm early 20s, not a detective. Oh, that's so funny. I love it.
Okay. Jordy has a good question, but we will get into the first sprint because I do not want to keep you guys here forever, especially because I messed up on the first one. So we're going to be jumping into the next sprint for 25 minutes. And yeah, good luck with the writing, guys. Let me know your word counts after we're done, and we will talk back with you guys and answer the next question in 25 minutes.
Good luck.
Hold on, that's not the right timer. Oh, that was a lot louder than I was expecting it to be.
Was there an alarm or something? I didn't even hear it.
Yeah. Oh, I guess it's just on my end. Yeah, the 25 minutes is over. I'll pause this. How did that sprint go?
Honestly, I barely like. I don't even know if any of the changes that I made improved it. I think I maybe have stared at this chapter too long, so I'll probably jump to the next one in the next sprint.
Hmm.
But I was just like rewriting the same few sentences the whole time. LOL.
Yeah, it'd be like that sometimes.
Yep. How was your sprint?
I think I got into a bit of a flow. I feel like it's bad to say this, but I'm in chapter 16 and I feel like the book is finally starting. Not
Oh
starting, but like it's getting fun. It's getting more fun for me. So, yeah, I'm enjoying this chapter.
nice. Happy to hear. That's always exciting when things really get rolling and you're just like sucked in.
Yeah. Let's get into a question. I pinned this one because Jordy asks, do you have other projects that you think about writing in the future, or are you capable of working on multiple at the same time? Projects.
Well, I don't think I'm capable of working on multiple at the same time, or at least I think I would struggle with that a lot. I feel like getting a voice right for a project is hard enough. The thought of trying to balance multiple voices, I
Yeah.
be too much for me. Like I want to be fully immersed in the one project that I'm in. Um, so yeah, so I'm trying not to think too much about future story ideas until I really feel like I'm in a good place with this project.
Yeah, same here. I can't work on. I've tried it before, but it just doesn't work out. I feel like the books end up reading the same when they shouldn't. So, I'm a one project at a time person, unfortunately. But I am always thinking about other ideas while I'm writing, but I just don't actually work on them.
Yeah, same.
And then Andy asked two good questions actually. The first one is, how do you find a balance between imagery slash description in your writing?
I think the second comment from her is actually just a fleshed out version of this question. So maybe we answer that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is. Uh I would love to know how you balance imagery driven slash flowery language with strong storytelling that's centered around plots. That's a
Isn't
great
this a
question.
struggle?
Yeah.
uh, for me, I would say there are definitely moments that I lean too far into imagery driven flowery language. And then in the greater context of the story, it feels forced or out of place. And I've had to like cut it down or change
Hmm.
things. Um, I think in general, I kind of try to let the imagery and the flowery language come up naturally, and I focus more so on the plot and the story, and then if an image happens to like plant itself or naturally fall into the scene, I'll lean into it. But
Hmm.
for me, I'm mostly focusing on the plot and the story, and then letting the flowery or prettier language just be like little surprises for myself or like little moments and not so much the focus of the book for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I like in previous projects I try to let the plot and the characters shine, and then every now and then you'll get a flowery passage here, or something in there. Like in my action series, I have a action trilogy about superheroes. There's not much flowery language there. It's mostly just superheroes beating each other up. But in my fantasy series and in this project, I try to be a little bit more descriptive, like especially when I'm describing settings or internal things that my characters are going through. I feel like I write with a lot of similes,
Mm.
and I'm trying to like balance it. Like I wonder sometimes if I do too much, or if maybe I'm not doing enough, or I need to switch up the kind of figurative language I'm using. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a balance, and I think I'm still trying to manage that.
Yeah, I feel that. I also feel like in general, if I'm not quite able to make it work or it doesn't feel like I quite nailed it, I'm generally more likely to cut it because for me as
Yeah.
a reader, it's so distracting and bothersome if there's like a forced metaphor or a metaphor that doesn't quite land or like
Yeah.
quite work and it's clear that the author just wanted it there for the pretty quote. Um,
Hmm.
so I feel like it needs to be one of those things that like you have to be a little cutthroat with yourself of like, is this actually adding something? Is it fully working or does it have to go type of thing?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's something that should be used pretty sparingly
Hmm.
in general, unless you have like overall a very literary or flowery voice. It depends, I feel like, on the writer and the project as well. Like some people, that's just naturally how they write, and I feel like that's awesome. But if it's not,
Hmm.
yeah, just let it happen naturally.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my
Because
thoughts.
readers can tell when stuff is forced.
Yes,
Like I feel like I won't say a lot of books, but I feel like certain books that have gotten popular, like over the internet, kind of like quote hunt, where they just put something in the book that they know will grab people's attention, but they don't. It doesn't really add anything to the overall narrative, which I feel
exactly.
like we should do less of. But it's people's books. They can write what they want.
Yeah, totally.
Um.
Also, hi, Andy. We didn't say hi to her. Thanks
Yes.
for
Hello, Andy. Thank you
coming.
for being here. Um. This question says, I don't know if you're in school, but how do you not lose motivation when going back to school? I find it so hard to write or invest in any other hobbies when I have other obligations. Well, you're not in school, so
But
but
you
yeah. So I guess I'll answer this question, and then you can answer it like in terms of having a full time job
yeah,
and balancing writing. But for me, I just have to not let either of the things take over my life. Like I can't let school take over every second I'm awake, and I can't like be too fixated on writing to where my actual responsibilities slip. So it's just you have to balance it. You have to find time for both. Um, just set aside time to write. It could be like an hour a day, or you set aside a day on the weekend to try and write as much as you can. And yeah, that's pretty much just how I stay motivated, because it definitely can be hard to write when you have so many different things going on in your life, but you just have to make time for like the things that you find important.
yeah. I like that response. Um, For me, it's kind of like actually when I have other stuff in my life that I have to do that maybe isn't as fun, I almost feel like it motivates me to write more because then it becomes kind of like not an escape, but like the thing that
Hmm.
you're looking forward to. So I think if
Yeah.
you can romanticize writing and have it be like your reward almost or your like thing that you can't wait to get back to, that will help like with the motivation when you have other obligations going on because it's something you actually want to prioritize and not something you're being forced to prioritize, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's how people should look at their hobbies. I feel like we're in such a time where everyone's trying to monetize their hobbies, and it starts becoming less fun and more of a chore. So yeah, like you said, if you just look at it like a reward or something that you're looking forward to in your otherwise mundane life, I think that's a good way to keep yourself motivated.
Totally. Also, I think you can remove the sprints thing from the screen for now so that they can see us bigger.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There we
Oh,
go.
yes.
Ken, hold on, let me make sure I didn't skip a question before I get to his.
Yeah, if anyone wants to drop additional questions in the chat, we
Yeah,
would love to answer.
this is a good question. Any advice on coming up with scenes? I have like five or so solid scene ideas and the broader picture, but I get stuck on the rest, especially keeping in mind pacing.
Hmm.
Yeah, pacing can definitely be an issue when you have a lot of scene ideas and you're trying to figure out how to make them make sense and flow in a way that makes sense. Sometimes I feel like I just come up with scenes on the spot. Like I will definitely have like some scenes I want to include in the book, but it's usually not that many.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I have a good answer to this question right now.
I think my advice for this would be two things. One, start with what you want the scene to accomplish. Is it an emotional beat? Is it development for the relationship of the characters? If you know that, then you can start riffing off of that. Like, what sort of circumstances would make something like this happen? Or how can I complicate this to make that emotional beat more
Mm,
difficult? Like, if
yeah.
you're trying to have a romantic moment between your characters, maybe it's happening in a really unromantic setting and that's adding a layer of interest, or um, that can really like inspire different ideas. And then I would also say don't underestimate locations and activities. Like, one of the best ways to spice up your manuscript is to just like do a bit of an offbeat or like odd location. That's why forced proximity is so popular.
Yeah.
It's like sticking your characters in a weird scenario or like giving them a weird task to do and seeing what happens. Because you want to avoid like all of your scenes just happening like two characters sitting across from each other at a table. You want to keep it fresh.
Hmm.
So I would say come up with some potentially interesting locations in your world and like how can that interact with what needs to happen in the scene. That would be my
Yeah.
advice.
I was just about to bring that up actually. Like, think about your setting when you're coming up with scenes, and like think about if you're writing a fantasy and you have like your own world, just think about where in the world you can place your characters and how that can help with your plot. That
Yeah.
would be a good way to come up with some scenes. Here's another question regarding scenes. Where do you find inspiration usually, and what is the weirdest place you found some?
Ooh.
Ooh, yeah, I have to digest that one real quick. Weirdest place I found inspiration.
For a scene. Huh. I always find it very difficult to answer questions about where does inspiration come from, because to me it's so
Yeah.
mysterious and very like intuitive or just like random. Like,
Hmm.
I'll get scene ideas if I'm like listening to a song and then I start daydreaming about the book, or like in the
Yeah.
shower right before bed, like all those cliche like random times when your brain is kind of turned off and then inspiration
Hmm.
can strike. So yeah, I couldn't pinpoint any of the inspiration for my scenes, but for me it really is like when I come up with like a fun location, like the broom closet scene is one of my favorites just because the broom closet is so fun.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I can't think of weirdest place at the moment, but like I listen to a lot of music, so I feel like a lot of scenes are inspired by music. Like I have a playlist for this book that I listen to often while I'm writing it, and it's very like dark and atmospheric, and I feel like that's how a lot of my book is. Like I describe the city that my story takes place in as the darkest city in America because it's always
Ooh,
raining and it's like clouds all the time. So
I love
yeah, a
that.
lot of inspiration comes from like the darker songs on this playlist, or like I'll look at pictures of like New York, or like the way Gotham is represented in the different Batman movies. I'll look at that a lot. I'm always on Pinterest looking at images. That helps me a lot with inspiration. But yeah, I can't think of like the weirdest place. I feel like none of my inspiration comes from like anything weird. I've definitely had like weird searches on the internet, but
Oh
not
god,
like
yeah,
weird places I found inspiration.
same. Some of the things in my search history, I want to really compile a list or to make like a little post of like crazy things writers search for.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I had to search what the effects of cyanide poisoning looked
yep,
like, and
yep,
I wonder if that landed me on a watch list or not. But
right.
yeah, my FBI agent is one of the 16 people in here. But Navia asks, what writing software do you two use? I use Microsoft Word. I used to use Google Drive, not anymore. But yeah,
Nice. I'm a Scrivener girl through and through. I love Scrivener.
yeah,
I'm obsessed.
uh, yeah. I want to get into Scrivener. Like
You should.
because like I had a free year trial that I never redeemed, and I think it like might have expired now, but
Aw.
it looked
That's
so convenient, but I'm very stuck in my ways.
For me, it's just how easy it is to keep your drafts and your brainstorming and everything all in one document. Like both of
Yeah.
my drafts, all of my brainstorming work, all my world building, all of it's like in one bar like that. I
Hmm.
can't beat that.
Yeah. That sounds so convenient because I have all my world building stuff in like a big Google Drive folder, and I've recently started migrating it to this other software called Obsidian, which is like a note taking
Oh yeah.
software. And but those, it's like I'll have, if I want to like find something in my world building, I'll have to open Obsidian and then go between that and Word. So it's not the
Right.
most efficient process, but that's how I do it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
What do you guys use?
mentioned Ken mentioned that, by the way, I'm a girl, guys. Is your actual name something else? Because we can keep that in
Oh
mind.
yeah.
It's Ken Chamberlain.
Yes, that is definitely my bad. It's
That's
like
so
yeah. um Oh, this is another great question. Mashing movie and book ideas together gives me ideas. I have an idea for Final Destination and 17 again.
that's fun.
Wow, I actually love both of those movies. If you guys were to mash something together, what would it be?
Ooh,
Oh,
it's a great question.
like book and movie. Hold
I
on,
will,
I have to think about that.
yeah, I would have to think about it too. Oh, Kanice, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Um, I think, I don't know. I've been reading a lot of vampire books lately, so I would love to mash the vibes of like a proper paranormal vampire romance
Mm,
with something, I don't know, with something. I don't know what the second piece would be, but I feel like
yeah.
it's fun to give that like subgenre a little bit of a twist. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. When I first came up with the idea of Court of Rooks, it was actually supposed to be more like urban fantasy, paranormal kind of. So like it was like there's a DC character called Constantine. He had a TV show I think for a bit and a bunch of comic books. So that was like the one half of the inspiration, and the other inspiration was like any movie with like a serial killer. So like Zodiac or Seven or Silence of the Lambs. So I could probably still revisit that maybe with another character who solves crimes but that are like fantasy inspired. So that would probably be my pick, like Constantine and Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, that's fun. I love that.
Um, doesn't look like we have any more questions at the moment. If you guys
Did
have any
you
more questions, definitely leave them in the comments.
did you read
Um,
Powerless? I mean, I'm assuming not because it's, I guess it's more of a female driven book. But I'm reading it right now, and it's like marketed as a cross between the Hunger Games and the Red Queen. And
mm,
the Hunger Games references are so glaring. I actually found it to be very distracting. I'm like, wow,
oh,
like this is a little too close. Like I
mm,
feel like when you're taking inspiration, like we talked about earlier, ideally it would be kind of unrecognizable. I will say,
yeah,
Powerless, you can tell. You can tell what she was
yeah.
crossing.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people talk about that book. I have not read it. I really don't do a lot of reading. I'm reading Six of Crows right now, and it's taking me a minute. Even though I love the book, but it's taking me a minute to get through it.
Mm,
But yeah, I think we'll hop into our last sprint of the live,
sounds
unless
good.
anyone has any more questions. Let me reset the timer. Yeah, okay. I'm not seeing any questions right now. So we're gonna hop into the third and final sprint of the live, and then probably answer a couple more questions after that one, and then we'll get out of here. So yeah, good luck everybody with this last sprint. Hope you guys get a lot of words written. Let's get this. Ooh. Okay, everyone, I'm gonna cut this sprint a little short. Um, had about a minute 30 left. That's fine. That's fine. Um, yeah, so let's do final outro. How did everyone's sprint go? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, I'll let some comments roll in. Brielle, how'd that sprint?
Oh.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You're good. It was pretty good for me, but well, I don't know if that's true. I ended up actually making a ton of comments because I felt like I noticed a bunch of like random small plot holes and like little inconsistencies, things that need to change still. So I ended up just making a ton of comments because I felt like I was struggling with that chapter, and so I'm gonna come back to it, I think, later in the draft. But yeah, it's tough right now. A lot to change, but we're getting there. How was it for you?
Pretty good. I realized halfway through that this chapter was insanely long, so I ended up splitting it. And I wrapped it up a couple minutes ago actually, so I was just kind of sitting here reading over what I wrote. But wrote a pretty vulnerable moment between two of my main characters, so that was pretty fun.
That is always so fun.
But yeah. I know you have to go, so I'll let you get out of here.
Yeah, sorry guys, have to go get my nails done. Thank you so much again for having me. I had so much fun.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you for bearing with me through those technical
Yeah, of
difficulties at the beginning.
course. No problem.
But yeah,
Awesome.
I'll hang around to answer a couple questions and then get out of here too.
Sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
And feel free to come on over to my channel if you
Yes,
wanna.
definitely check out Brielle's channel. Everyone say bye.
Bye.
Okay. So Brielle is gone, so it's going to be just me now for the last couple of minutes. I'm gonna answer Jordy's question so she doesn't think I hate her still. Let's scroll up. Oh, I pinned it. Okay. Often people say that to propose a book to an agent, it sometimes helps saying it is a mix between this and this. Yeah, they call those comp titles, and they're very helpful in your query letter to get an agent interested in your book. So for Court of Rooks, what would my comp titles be? I feel like I say it all the time. Like it would be uh the Batman meets the Zodiac, or the Batman meets Seven. So those would probably be my two comp titles. I can't really think of any like book ones for this project, at least because I don't really read many mystery thrillers. So yeah, there's that. But I'll give another example for my fantasy series. I would say it is Harry Potter meets Avengers Infinity War. So there's a book and a movie for you there. That's how I would describe that entire series. But yeah, I hope you guys all had great writing sprints. I know I missed out the first one because I forgot to start the stream. But yeah, what was everyone's final word count for today? I would love to know. I didn't actually track mine today because I was kind of just in the flow and I don't know where I started or stopped. So I didn't really uh track my word count. But I would love to know how much words you guys got written in today's stream. And I'll take a couple more questions if you guys have any. And if not, then I'll just let you guys get on with the rest of your night. I hope your character profile went well. I need to make a couple of those. Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with this. You do need to read the genre you write. 100%. Because people are definitely expecting a certain thing when they pick up your book and they walk in the fantasy aisle of Barnes and Noble and they pick up your book, and they don't want to pick up your book and find out that it's nothing like they were expecting. So yes, you definitely need to read the genre that you write in. And yes, the reader's attention is way more important than the agent's attention because that's the person who's going to be buying your book. The agent is selling it, but at the end of the day, you have to get the reader to buy your book, and that's who you should be catering to almost all the time you're writing. Ian wrote 100 words. That's still good though, especially because seems like you're doing revisions. The eccentric raven got 201 words of your character profile. I feel like that's a lot of words for a character profile. And Ken has more sci-fi ideas. You watch more movies and reading sci-fi. Yeah, that's how I am too. Like, I feel like I watch a lot more movies in the genres that I write in as opposed to books. But I do want to start reading more. I'm gonna buy a Kindle soon, and buy some books eventually. And maybe I'll make some videos about that if you guys would be interested in seeing my journey back into reading. Can we talk more about comps? Do you think they are something necessary? I don't think they're necessary, but they can be helpful when it comes to the querying process if you do try to get traditionally published. I feel like they're more so important for the marketing aspect of your book. I feel like you don't really need them, but it can be a good way to help describe your book when someone asks about it and they haven't read your book at all or they don't know anything about it. So giving them two titles that they may be more familiar with could help. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Mistborn. but I've also heard that his writing style isn't the most engaging. It's more so the world building that he's really good at, which I would definitely be uh interested in reading. That's just something that I've heard. Yeah, exactly what Ian said. It's necessary for setting the advance. If those books sold the amount, then yours may too. Yeah, like if you set your comp title, you're kind of setting yourself up to be you're setting yourself up to enter that already built an audience that another book may have. And by saying that your book is similar to theirs, you're kind of just saying you like that book, you may like my book. So in that sense, comp titles can be pretty necessary. Now, I'm not saying that that's true because I've never read any Sanderson, but I was reading on like Reddit posts trying to like see what the series is about because I hear he's the god of world building. But I just heard I saw a couple people say like his writing style isn't the best. But of course, I'm gonna have to read to make my own opinion. That was just something that I saw. I never read something because of comps, just a blurb. Yeah, yeah. Usually, yeah, I make my decisions off the blurb or like the first page. Never, yeah. Comp titles really don't sway me in whether or not I'll buy a book or watch something. They probably don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions. Yeah, I'll take a couple more questions, and if not, I will let you guys go for tonight. Thank you guys so much for hopping in the stream with me and for sticking in the chat when I was literally live for 30 minutes, or at least I thought I was live for 30 minutes. But yeah, you guys are awesome for that. And thank you to Jordy for letting me know that I wasn't live. If it wasn't for her, we probably would still be sitting here in the dark. Oh yeah, if you guys have any more book recommendations, that would be great. Yeah. Sprints went pretty well for me today. I wrote probably over 1,000 words. My chapter was getting to 5,000 words, so I had to split it in half. Steelheart. I've heard of Steelheart, yeah, and I would love that one because I have my own superhero series, so I'll definitely check that one out. I answered your question, Jordy, or did you ask another question? You type it again because I could have sworn I answered it. Yeah, no, my chapters definitely are not 5K. Like 4,000 would probably be like the average maximum. That's why I had to split it in half. But yeah, 5,000 for one chapter is kind of crazy. Let me scroll up and try to find Jordy's question. Oh yes, you did definitely. When writing fantasy, do you tend to avoid using figure of speech as well known to us modern English users, but that wouldn't feel fitting in a fantasy setting? It depends on the kind of fantasy. So I've not written a high fantasy or like something that takes place in like medieval time period. So I write like urban fantasy. So I do tend to use like more modern expressions or yeah, in your example like mea culpa or pardon. I feel like in high fantasy it would be more appropriate to use like more archaic way of speaking. Not like old English, but like more formal or like I feel like people back then spoke more flowery, so that would probably be more appropriate for like a high fantasy. But if you're writing like urban fantasy, I feel like that's not necessarily needed and it may feel a little out of place. I think it just depends on the kind of story you're using. Like obviously you don't want to use modern English if you're writing like a Game of Thrones type story because that's not going to make sense. Like I know one of the main critiques of Fourth Wing, even though I haven't read it, is that a lot of people think it reads too modern for like the story it is. That's just like one of the main critiques I've heard about that book. So I think you just have to know what is appropriate for the kind of book you're writing. And as in terms for words in other languages, I think that's can be appropriate as long as it's like a phrase most people know. because you don't want to be saying things that like people have to look up. I saw another question. I thought Ken wants to talk about the concept of original ideas. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I would love to talk about original ideas. When I first got into writing, well, I'll do this. When I first found Wattpad, because that's where I write, I found it because I was looking up Star Wars fan fiction, but I've never actually written fan fiction myself. I just something feels a little odd about that to me, like writing about someone else's characters or in someone else's world. Because like I definitely could have been a fan fiction writer because my whole reason for start writing was because I wanted to make my own MCU. So I definitely could have wrote like Marvel fan fiction, but like I decided to just like create my own characters, create my own world, and like write my own original story. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what context you mean the concept of original ideas, but if you want to elaborate on that, I will definitely give you my thoughts. Yeah, I've heard that about Fourth Wing too, and I probably won't read it anytime soon because of the reviews I've seen. Oh yeah, I loved when Harry Potter did. I try to come up with my own sayings in my fantasy story that would make sense for their culture and like the world they live in. Like I like little details and tidbits like that because it makes your world feel more lived in if like the fantasy characters have things that they say that make sense in like their religion or the culture, or like if they have gods and they'll say a saying that relates to whatever god they pray to. Okay, I see. Like worrying whether your ideas are original or not. Like, am I writing things that have been done before? So, in terms of this, I don't really worry about this too much because let's be real, your ideas are not going to be original. Like, almost everything has been written about at this point. So, it's really just about taking an idea you like and trying to add enough to it to where it feels different from whatever you may think feels similar. So that's just how I approach that. Because honestly, nothing is original these days unless you're writing something really crazy. And then even in that case, it may not be completely original. So I would just say try and focus on making it as original to you as you can. So just try to put your own personality, your own spin on it. And that's really all you can do. If someone says you're copying, that's their opinion. But yeah, I'll take maybe one more question and I'll get out of here. Too much dragons. That's crazy. Wow. Oh, you're kidding. Okay, I was about to say. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'll take one more. Do I like classics? Because I'm an English major, I kind of have to like classics. But even if I wasn't, I think I enjoy them enough. Yeah, so yeah, my answer to that is I like classics. I have to. And one more question. Yeah, this is the last question I'll take and then I'll let you guys go. How do you know when it's a series type of idea or just a really long book? Now, it's great that you asked me this question because I have never written well, I'm lying. Most of what I've written has been a part of a series. I've written one standalone, and technically Court of Rooks is a standalone right now, but I have ideas to make it a series. So, I don't know. That's a hard one for me to answer because I find it hard to write standalones. But I feel like if your story is has a large scope and you feel like you won't do it justice with just one book, then I feel like that's when you maybe want to explore making it a series. And on the flip side, if you don't have enough ideas or you feel like you're taking your story past the threshold of where it needs to go, or you feel like you're kind of just writing stuff just to write it, then that's probably when you need to look into maybe condensing your idea and thinking about if it's just going to be a standalone versus a series. So yeah, that's probably how I would answer that. But hopefully that was a sufficient answer for you, Ken. And yeah, I want to thank those of you who are still here for joining me on my first live stream that I'm hosting. The previous one that you guys might have been in was not hosted by me, so that's why there were so many technical difficulties today. But I'll definitely be doing another one soon, and it'll definitely run a lot smoother next time. But I would thank you guys for joining and for all your questions and for being active on my channel. It really means a lot to me. Like, I cannot believe I've grown this community in such a short amount of time, and that you guys are supporting me like this. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys had a good, productive sprint. Okay, Jordy, I wasn't gonna spoil it, but yeah, my next sprint is gonna be with Jordy, so be on the lookout for that. Yeah, I feel that, Ken. But that's where outlining and planning can come into play to help you get through that. But I'll let you guys go now. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you guys in the next stream or video. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.